On. Thanks. We will call the meeting to order. First agenda item is approval of minutes from the last meeting. Are there any changes or corrections? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Directions to where?
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. No old business, so new business, case DR 2113, request for design review, CD Downtown Zoning District, exterior masonry wall repair and stabilization at 314 Gaines Street. Lacandro Management petitioner, is anyone here? Speak on that?
Do you want us to give a quick overview first, or do you want to hear from the petitioner first?
We'll do an overview first.
Okay, yeah, you wanna?
Sure. So this project is the Hiller Building in downtown Davenport. It's located within the West 3rd Street National Historic District. So the applicant is applying for state and federal historic tax credit to repair the structure. And this will be done in accordance with the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. So it's a multi-phased project. So today's item is just to repair and stabilize the deteriorated south parapet wall, as well as sections of masonry wall located near the south end of the east elevation. So the applicant has hired Renaissance Restoration, which is a company based out of Galena, Illinois, and Des Moines, Iowa, that have experience doing historic masonry repair and historic preservation. So since they are applying for state and federal tax credits, this project has been well vetted by historic preservationists. So staff is recommending approval of the project as presented.
Do you guys have anything to add to that?
I mean, I think basically covered, it's a fairly extensive project, with the removal and the rebuild and making sure that we fit everything within the historic guidelines, and Renaissance Restoration, as an approved, historic piece and masonry company. So, yeah, it's gonna be intense, but it's gonna look really good when it's done.
We were awarded an HRDP grant for this specific work to offset some of the cost of it, so those are the guidelines that we use to apply for that grant, which is through the Department of Cultural Affairs and is reviewed by SHPO, or that's the work that we're talking about doing here. So, it had parapet repair, bad parapet repair in the 1960s, and that's probably what set this deterioration in motion. There's actually a photograph from 2004 that shows that parapet starting to go, but there was at one time a chimney there as well. So what has happened inside the wall is that it has deteriorated the masonry to a point that it has to be removed. It's a stone rubble wall. It's not a stone block wall. So it's made of little pieces of stone like that. That's how it was built. And so that's going to be removed down to the second floor sill and built back in concrete block on that elevation only. And then it has parging on it, which it did historically, so it will be parged over to look, but it won't be bent anymore. And then the parapet will be put back in appropriate brick. And there'll also be work done on the east elevation. There's a crack there, but that's not really as significant. And then there'll be work done on the west extension in the back. So,
Marion, what's your role in this?
I'm sorry. I'm the
Consultant?
the tax credit consultant. Yes.
Couldn't do better.
Telling me, I tell her that every day.
So this will also be rebuilt, and it will have a stone. It will also have a stone veneer, but it will also end up being parged as well. When we went back in through this, there's the building was parged originally. It had a coating, which has been overlaid, but and that's very typical of these old buildings, these old mobile buildings, so.
Essentially trying to accurately, historically restore it while also removing the baby food orange exterior color.
Correct.
So,
This was some bracing that, when I first went into this building in 2017, a prior owner, not Mr. LaCondra, had put this in. I don't know if it did anything, but it was there when I first went into this building in 2017. This is not deterioration. Part of the working with Renaissance Restoration is they wanted us to remove all the plaster on the interior south wall. So it had to be removed from the basement all the way to the second floor. And they're going to repoint the inside as well as rebuilding part of it. But this will not be taken down. And actually, that plaster was very sound. There were no cracks in the basement and the first floor, but then you started to see deterioration on the second floor. That's where the bracing was. So if you had looked at a picture of this that I had taken last summer, it would be a completely clear and solid plaster wall. But
essentially the masonry company, essentially the masonry company wanted to see if the damage had come down that far.
Right.
So we had to remove all that so you could visibly tell.
But what they'll also do then is repoint this so it will be much more stable below what's happening above.
Is the roof keeping it dry?
Yes.
Is it a good roof?
The roof is 2009. It's not the greatest, probably the greatest shingles on earth, but it is actually, the roof is pretty solid. So it was re-roofed. There's much original interior inside. The layout is, some of the sizes may have changed over time, but it was apartments. It was John Hiller's home, the center part of it, built in 1852. There's two brick solid stone walls in the middle of that building, not just the parapet wall that you see in almost the middle, but there's actually another one. It has an incredible stone foundation, and then the side walls. So he lived there and then added probably the south end and then the north end. And by 1867, this building was finished, and it was lived in from 1852 till 2015 continuously. So it's pretty remarkable in many ways to see as much of the original things inside it. I expected the first time I went out to see sleeping rooms, something like that, but the apartments are actually pretty much laid out as they were. This is they're not big apartments, but and the extensions on the back allow for kitchens in most of them, and then that center apartment there. So you have the two entrances from the front, and these are the smaller apartments on the north end because that's a 5-bay part of the building, and the rest of the building is a 7-bay. So it's a 12-bay building all across. But that center in the middle was actually the original, where it says access from apartment below, that section, that was the original part of the building.
What's your timeline look like?
Right now, we're projecting it right at about 24 months. So, and that's, everything. Obviously, the masonry, we have to do that first. Sure. And then, we can sort of try to move more to the interior from there. Complete electrical, plumbing, it needs everything.
And we will be coming back for other exterior things that we're doing to this body. But right now, this is the masonry will be happening very soon. We're hoping to get that done very soon. So, but we'll be coming back to you for any other. Well, there'll be windows because the windows are not original; they're vinyl. We don't assume a lot of changes on the exterior, but Jamie would really like to get that orange paint off. This is what the building looked like in the 60s. This is a photo from the Quad City Times. And then there is a color photo from 2004. And I remember the day I came home from the station, I came that way, and I by the building, and it was gold. I'm like, oh, what happened? So,
Can you walk us through some of the steps or some of the hoops that you had to jump through for like kind of maintaining historical accuracy and some of the approvals you've already received?
Sure. So the tax credit process, we've applied for tax credits also for enterprise, for workforce development tax credits, which don't require historic, but it is historic building, so you would have to do historic. So we have had several consultations with the State Historic Preservation Office about what we needed to do, particularly with this deteriorated parapet wall. The interior, we do not have plans to make big changes on the interior. It is intact, it is original, it is the layout, so it's not like having to reverse out and take a bunch of walls out or whatever. So there's not a lot of discussion there, but most of our discussion has been about the parapet wall. Of course, we've completed the part one. We have approved part ones for the building. We'll be doing state and federal, and of course, they track together. So some of the certainly things that Jamie and I have talked about, this is a finished building on the inside. It is not a brick, it is not an exposed brick building, so it will require that it have covered ductwork. So it will be finished ductwork, and that will be done on interior spaces of the unit because you don't want that running through your hall. It will have to have sprinklers because that's what's required of city code. So again, those will be hidden. So you will not see a bunch of exposed things in these units when they're finished. So those are the kind of conversations we've been having, and we did our 1.5 with the State Historic Preservation Office, which is the preparation for your part two. We did that actually back in December. We've already, been through that with them. So this building, it has masonry challenges, but the actual rehabilitation is pretty straightforward because it isn't taking spaces and changing spaces. It's sort of more restoring spaces and dealing with things like a stone wall, which is quite challenging these days. So things like that.
But with the floor plan essentially staying the same, that makes a lot of that with historical tax credits a lot easier, So.
It already has, for instance, on the back, it has steel stairs it has back doors. So part of life safety, and we actually have talked a great deal to the city as well, and we just walked through it again today with them. But all of the units have an exterior exit to the back. And so that's very helpful in terms of in terms of life safety and things like that. So it's certainly not, the masonry complicates it because of the just very difficult and very expensive to work on a stone building. But this is an extremely important building. 2 years ago, I did nominate it for most endangered list, and it was one of 9 that was put on that list by the state of Iowa. And it's this is the largest stone building in downtown Davenport. It is the oldest stone building in downtown Davenport. It's bigger than the Carriage House, which is a great old building, but this one's older. The owner is significant. He worked on the first bridge across the Mississippi. This building is the statement for how German Davenport grew. He started this as that 3 bays in the middle. That was his house. The population went from 1,800 people in 1850 to 11,000 people in this city in 1860. So you can see this, as people are coming and the housing was, phenomenally scarce. So he's building onto his house. And it's not a fancy brick house, really, a stone house. It's a workmanlike house. He got a little fancier on the north end. So there he used the limestone face, but then dolomite for the archways and the trim around the door, which you can't see now because it's all spray painted gold. But when that's off, you'll see the gray and then you'll see the gold. And so he got fancier on the newest part, which is 1867, we believe. So it really does kind of tell you the story of,
That's
You
my
know,
favorite picture.
yeah. Yeah, so.
How many apartments is it?
10. And we're not, that's the number that were in it when it was closed down in 2015. There's 2 in the raised basement and 4 on each side.
Are there any other questions, comments? Is there a motion to approve?
I would make the motion to approve.
All in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Good luck, guys. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Alan.
For your
Appreciate it.
courage and undertaking this project.
Yeah,
Thank God for Marion.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you.
Can I just take a quick moment before we head into the design guidelines real quick? I wanted to introduce 3 new board members that we have. We're very excited to have them. So we have Tori, Mark, and Carla. They were just appointed like a week and a half ago. So they're pretty new. So I just wanted to welcome them all. And then if you want to just give a quick introduction to yourselves as well. Greg, you want to start?
Greg Lundgren, I'm a retired developer contractor, and we had an architectural firm, and I've been on this longer than dirt. But I'm apparently not feeble enough that that's feeble of mind. Physically, I'm okay, it's the mind that's going.
I'm PJ Silverwood, was a teacher and a house painter.
I'm Evan Salzer. I'm a graphic designer. Been on the board for about a year and a half now.
George Rashid. I've seen marketing and advertising, and interesting to find out you're a design person.
Matt Steinacher, manager and analyst for a large healthcare company. So I've been here trying to figure it out before the meeting a few months. I'm relatively new as well.
Zach Howell, civil engineer by trade, and I think I've been on the board for a couple of years at least by now.
And then we have 2 other board members who are not here. Dana Wilkinson, she's also one of the originals. She's an interior designer. And then Cindy Gremens, she's also fairly new. She came on at the same time as Matt. So we're a fairly new board for various reasons, but you're coming on in a really cool time because we are about to update the downtown design guidelines. Wanted to introduce to you Matt Flynn. He is the planning senior
Still the senior planning
manager. That's
with
what.
no
That's so he's in community and economic development, and he's the one that's kind of leading the charge on these revisions. So I will pass it off to you, Matt.
Thanks, Laura. Again, I'm Matt Flynn, and I too have been involved with the what was originally the downtown design group. Originally, the design review board was charged just with the downtown. Their role was expanded over the few years, and it actually goes back to 2007 was when both the downtown design review group was formed, as well as the adoption of the original downtown design guidelines. And to be honest, I can't point my finger to one specific trigger that caused this revelation with the city that this is something we needed. I'm gonna guess that it was probably had a lot to do with River Renaissance, which, if you are not familiar with River Renaissance, this was a huge boost to the city in the early 2000s that was triggered by a $20 million grant from the state of Iowa. It resulted in construction of a lot of, I would say now iconic buildings and institutions downtown, the New Ventures Center, the Figge Art Museum, the Redstone and Harrison Street parking ramps, the River Music Experience, major renovations to the Adler Theater, and the Sky Bridge, which, as we look forward and seeing how the city has earmarked a lot of the COVID disaster recovery funds, will soon be known as the bridge to our fantastic Main Street Landing destination riverfront. I'm counting on it, because I had a neighborhood meeting last week, and people still call it that thing that I would not call it. Anyway, just a little bit of background. So the downtown, or the design review board's role has changed a lot over the years. And it originally took on, in addition to downtown, over time, it took on a review authority over the village of East Davenport, the Elmore Corners area, which was kind of spurred by the development of the casino, and assuming things calmed down a bit, I'm sure a lot more development there. And at one time, actually reviewed residential, new residential construction in the central city to assure some compatibility there. That no longer is the case, as our new zoning ordinance addresses that much better. But the new zoning ordinance, in addition to a number of planning studies, not only taken on by the city, but for a large part taken on by the Downtown Partnership. And Kyle Carter's here. You can come up if you want, or just chime in. He's not shy, so just know that anytime you want to come up and chime in, feel free to. But it's been 15 years, and it just seemed like it was a good time to take this on. And quite honestly, pre-COVID, you know, we were pretty busy as a staff, just trying to keep up with development. So with the reorganization that happened last year for a number of really good reasons, of getting much of our planning staff closer to the people that they, within the organization that they work with most closely, which would be Trishna's building, building group, engineering, natural resources. I think that was a natural progression for the city. So it left me here in City Hall in addition to taking on projects related to COVID recovery, pursuing grants. Also, quite honestly, gave an opportunity for the city to address some of the projects that have been needed for a long time, but really we couldn't devote the resources to. So one of those that I'm excited to take on is the update of the downtown design guidelines. And basically, again, there's nothing broken about the design guidelines. It's been a while. Construction and design really hasn't changed radically over the last 14, 15 years, but I think there's a number of things that can be improved with the guidelines, not only just simply getting them into an editable, formatable format, but making sure that the design guidelines reflect how this board operates and works for you, rather than just simply being this document that's set off to the side. So it's really important that as we go through this process, it's not what staff wants, it's how best this revised document can work for you and help make your job easier. So what I've presented to you up to this point, and again, just this meeting is really an introduction. We're not really looking for a lot of feedback at this point. And I think this information, a lot of it was sent out maybe a couple months ago, but a few things have happened. We wanted to make sure we weren't just bringing you in without an agenda. We had Kyle becoming a parent, me becoming a grandparent, and a number of other things. But here we are, and so a lot of this information you've probably seen before, and really without trying to gut what's already been done, we just wanted to try and make it a little bit better organized. And as I went through, starting with the table of contents, I think we can kind of compact the document. For example, as proposed, the table of contents is proposed to go from 23 chapters to 16. Is that a number cast in stone? Definitely not. But you can kind of see there how we see this being organized, but again, subject to change. Want to go with the next slide? Shared values is really the foundation for the design guidelines. These exist in your current design guidelines. I've kind of packaged them and paired them up together, and however the shared values end up in the final document, it's really important that the shared values are that, indeed that. They're shared by everybody. They're really not debatable. It should be very clear to really anybody in the city. These are the things that are important, and it should be reflected ultimately in the design standards themselves. Go with the next slide, please. So, and then the design objectives are really where the design review board will have most of its deliberations will be under these. I think it's about 16 or 18 categories. We want to make sure that as you review development proposals, that you can at least point to one or multiple design objectives and say, yes, what's happening here meets those objectives and are reflected specifically in the, I'll say, the design chapters that we really are just starting to take a look at. Go ahead. No, I guess we did go to slide 2. And again, we can come back, and if you have specific questions about any of those, we can have that discussion here in a couple of minutes. I mentioned the design chapters are really just beginning to work on those. The way they'll be organized is really pretty similar to how they're in the existing design guidelines. We'll reference the specific design objectives that are relevant, and then we'll provide a narrative, and then we'll provide a number of design examples, both good and bad. And again, the goal is to show what good has already happened in Davenport, largely directed by this board, but we're not going to be picking on, ABC, locksmith or whatever in downtown. When we use bad examples, we're going to be very careful that we don't use specific Davenport examples, because there aren't that many, quite honestly. So where we go from here, again, we want to just kind of use this opportunity to kick off this project, review the materials that we've already sent out. You're going to find typos, you're going to find pictures missing, pictures without captions. It's definitely a work in progress, but I think it's an opportune time to start taking that on. One of the discussions we've had is, well, do we want to work together with the entire board, or do we as a city want to assign a specific working group of people that maybe not getting together in person, but having a small working group that can bounce ideas off in advance of the overall group to discuss at the upcoming meetings, hopefully on a monthly time frame. And with that, thinking of who might be good candidates for that, not only within the DRB, but we know that the Downtown Partnership is certainly interested playing an active role there, other stakeholders downtown, perhaps Plan and Zoning Commission members, or maybe even city council, and without just saying, okay, this is what we want. I think we kind of need to hash that out a little bit and determine, first of all, who has the authority of creating this group. I think our initial thought, it's an ad hoc group. It's really up to the discretion of the DRB and the DRB chair, but give some thought there. In terms of the whole timing, again, I said the guidelines aren't broke. I think they can be a lot better and work for you. So I think this whole project should probably take several months. Maybe when we get into the winter, the load, your load, case load will reduce and give you more time to spend on that. But, you know, we would hope that by spring of next year that we should be ready to roll. So, you know, when we get closer and get a final draft, we'll definitely want to get review from, you know, cast a wider net, talk to more stakeholders downtown, and go through the Plan and Zoning Commission process. This would likely be incorporated by reference into the zoning code, so it would need approval by the P&Z and the council. But again, we would want it structured so that the design guidelines could be amended just simply by the board and not have to go back through the formal process every time. So with that, Kyle.
Yeah, so a couple of things is, yeah. Thanks, Matt. I'll roll it. Chair. Appreciate the opportunity. Again, for the folks who I've not worked with before, I'm Kyle Carter with the Downtown Davenport Partnership. And a very quick lesson on that. We are funded by the downtown property owners. Our entire business organization exists because of the funds that they put in the bucket that we help manage and put back into downtown. So we have been around for 40 years and have been kind of the public-private partnership, the original public-private partnership, I think, between the city of Davenport and another private entities. So we've had great faith in this process for years. And it's had good results. I think overall, Matt is right. These aren't broken. We had an opportunity to do it ourselves through the master planning process that you may have remembered from last year. But because these have been pretty good over the years, and we knew Matt and his team was working in the background on this, we actually deferred from having our WXY master planning team work at this level of detail because we knew that you guys are going to do a good job with this. And I think Matt's first draft is really good. So I know there's a lot to dive into over the next several months, but it is in a good place. However, there's a reason we are doing it, and that it is challenging, and I've seen fights break out through here over the years, and a lot of it has dealt with just lack of clarity more often than anything, or something being very vague and not well defined. So when Matt says that we need to work on this so it works for you, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I think it'll make both the private sector and the public sector just happier in general if we get this done. So we're looking forward to that. There's also a parallel committee to you guys that I think flies under the radar. So out of the Downtown Partnership, there is an actual ordinance on the books with the city for the Complete Streets Committee. And so what we specialize in is primarily streetscape improvements, dealing with a lot of the light poles and sidewalks and public right-of-way issues of downtown, which sometimes are addressed here, but we get into great detail on that stuff. We help manage the actual streetscape improvement projects with the city. And so that group of folks is paying attention to this process too. And we'll make sure that we're weighing in with Matt, and Matt's well aware of all this. So between the two groups of DRB and Complete Streets, I think we'll have a real good set of expertise to make sure that this thing comes out right. Because the better this document is, easier your jobs are, and the less confusion there is for the private sector when they're trying to build something, trying to understand your expectations before they even set foot in this room. So, I don't know, I'm jazzed about it. I'm happy to get this thing done, so.
I wish I didn't do all my big thinking laying in bed rather than at my office, but that's how it goes sometimes. A couple of things I wanted to expound upon. You kind of mentioned the streetscape standards. You'll see that there is actually in the table of contents a chapter for the downtown streetscape design standards. We still need to hash that out, see specifically, does that actually need to be in the design guidelines? Can it just be referenced? So I think that interface between the Complete Streets Committee, what they do, what is on our, within our administrative procedures and codes relating to right-of-way and whatnot, and how they relate to the design guidelines. I think it's something we need to hash out. That may require a subcommittee of the committee, but we're just gonna kind of put that in a placeholder, and it's probably something that we're not gonna attack within the next few weeks.
And we've done the heavy lift on that stuff already. Like, Barry went through and worked on the electrical, like, we attacked all the code, but a lot of it was never finally approved. So a lot of the heavy lifting has been done, but it does need to go through the formal city process. There's a few things that never got codified that it's kind of a handshake or a best practice agreement among some parts of the streetscape designs specifically. But that's like getting way down into the weeds. But I just feel good that between the two documents of what we've been doing, that it's going to work out, and we're not that far off.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges is, and it's probably an oxymoron, is that by updating these and providing more clarity, making them work for you, is trying to bring some objectivity to what is naturally a very subjective process. And that's always going to be the challenge. I think that's another reason why I think it's really good to have this board actively involved, and not to disparage the consultants that work with Kyle's group on the overall master plan. But it's not a one size fits all. If you were the design review board for Colonial Williamsburg, Virginia, it'd be easy. It really would. But when you have a diverse, dynamic, historic, yet modern downtown, that kind of gets into the finesse. So we are looking forward to working with you on this.
And it's exactly why we punted on this issue throughout our master planning process, because I knew this was coming, and I think this will be a better product.
Anything more?
Matt?
I don't want to necessarily speak on Dana's behalf, but we had a couple of emails with her that I think that the route she'll probably go as chair is to assign a subcommittee to work on this. So if you're interested, let me know, and I'll help communicate that with Dana, so she can probably in September formally announce a steering committee, at least for the DRB, and I'm sure that we will have some additional people outside of DRB on that committee as well.
Does anyone have any questions or comments about?
Pretty nerdy stuff.
It's exciting, super exciting stuff.
I'll just say, as a staff person, that when we're reviewing projects, it will be very helpful to have something that's easier to reference. It's been a struggle to concisely convey what the design guidelines are meant to say in its current format. And I think overall it will be a more user-friendly document than what we have right now.
And to be honest, and I don't know what happened, but The only version we have that we can find is this old scanned version that's a PDF. It's not in Adobe, so it's not searchable, it's not editable, and kind of a pain.
I'm responsible for that.
Oh, you are?
So the gentleman who passed away, who worked at City Hall for many years, who put that together.
Ken Ostrike.
Ostrike, so this was in 2007, I think. Ostrike came to my office and said, I don't know how to use a scanner. And he's like, make this happen. And he handed me the document and I ran it through our Xerox machine. And I think that's the only document that we have that isn't the original.
Well, Ken was a good designer. He was an old school designer.
He was an old school dude.
He loved to illustrate. He loved design, and you will see many of his illustrations in the original document. And as a testament to him, they will not all go away. Some will live on.
He was a great artist, and so yeah, I remember sitting in New Ventures and like running that through the machine. So sorry for the shitty document. I don't know if is the original here at least. Is it MIA?
We only have hard copies.
Okay.
I mean, we rescanned
Yeah.
it, but it doesn't, when we tried to do
I
the
think
text
I-
recognition, doesn't work.
Yeah, I have a feeling my crappy one was the one that ended up being out there more. Sorry about that.
Well, if there's no other questions, I guess we.
Actually forgot to give Tori, Mark, and Carla a chance to introduce themselves. So if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about yourself.
I'm Tori. I am the business development manager at Impact Life, formerly the City Valley Regional Blood Center. And I'm a native to Davenport and very excited to try to start giving back somehow to it in a little bit more formal setting.
My name is Mark Weir. I have been resident of Davenport approximately 25 years. I'm originally here. I like architectural design. It's something I just like to look at. And over time, I've studied a little bit about it. So I'd like to contribute wherever I can here.
Carla Anderson. I've lived here since 1994. I'm more interested in history of buildings and land, and I own the Claim House here in Davenport. So that's why I moved here. I love the house, and but yeah, I'm interested in doing something back for the city. And right now, I'm a store manager with the Black and Gold store. So, and hopefully retiring at some point in the next 6 months.
Welcome to the team.
Thanks.
Yes.
We have a motion to adjourn. All in favor, say yes. All opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thanks, guys.
Going down.
It really is. He's really done a great project.
Well, just one of those things, the creative process, particularly just for, if somebody else for me, is like a company.